going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I'm joined by a good friend and entrepreneur, Paul Callahan. Paul, how you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. This is exciting. I love this. It's unique.
Yes, it is so much fun, and it's the funny thing is, Paul and I are actually first-time actors that met on the set of St. Gabriel, and you could say there was something that really pulled us together while on set. So, no spoilers, obviously, but
no pun intended, right?
But not just that. Not only is Paul an actor, also co-owner of, as you see right there, Bullfrog Nutrition, Abiotic Factors, and the supplement course, as well as a formulator of sports supplements. So before we get started on the reason why we're here, Paul, what can you tell people about what you do and like a day in the life of what you do, running all the businesses, being co-owner, and also with the development and the formulator of the sports supplements? What's that like day in the life of you like?
Oh, it's interesting. It's never the same. I'll tell you that. That's why I like it, though. I'm very incompetent. I can't work for anybody else. So I can never go back to working for another person in my life. So I love it. I love that it changes every day. I like being my own boss. I don't like being told what to do. But, I like, kind of like the openness of what I do. So, I mean, there's things that, there's a lot of different avenues of income. There's a lot of different avenues of business relationships that are constantly evolving daily, weekly. So it's a very interesting industry. I love the sports supplement industry, just the fitness space in general. And it's always changing too. It's always evolving. There's always new education. There's always new data coming out. There's always new ways to, learn how to do things. And so it's an ever evolving, ever booming industry that just continues to grow. So I really like it. A day in the life of me, I mean, it's a lot of times it's my son, revolves around my son. He's 6, and he spends a lot of time in the stores with me. He spends a lot of time, doing stuff for the business with me. And a lot of time it's spent in the stores on the phone. I mean, just constantly doing different things. We do a lot of big events in the industry too. So we have, big guest appearances at the stores and things like that. So trying to educate at the same time, trying to educate, myself and then the people that are, supporting our businesses. So yeah, it's fun, man. It's never, like I said, it doesn't stop. It's never changing. It's always evolving. So it's definitely never boring. I can tell you that much.
Oh, for sure. And like you said, it's something with nutrition that we're always learning different things. There's always that educational thing. So you're constantly learning, which is constantly keeping you on your toes to get back with your clients and everything. So if you guys want to know more about Paul and what he does, I have all his social media links down here in the description. I suggest you give those a click and give those a follow because the guy knows what he's talking about. Very smart, and he's very dedicated to his craft. We've had a lot of conversations about what he does, and he's very serious about what he does, and he knows what the fuck he's doing. So make sure you're clicking these links down here in the description and giving him a follow. I promise you won't regret it. Now, you do got to have a lot of cardio if you're going to survive a horror movie, and that's the reason why we're here, Paul. We're here to talk about your first horror experience that got you started in the genre. And my friend, your first horror movie was
Friday the 13th, the shirt you have on. It's so fitting.
And it's so funny that you go back and watch this movie now and it totally holds up. Like, sure, there's some really corny, cheesy parts, but man, this movie is so dynamite for being, the mix of Psycho and Halloween. This movie totally holds up for what it is. Do you remember how old you were the first time you watched it?
This is embarrassing. Probably between 12 and 14. I not saying this in a negative connotation at all, not saying any regrets here. My father is a homicide detective, and we grew up pretty, I don't want to say sheltered, but we weren't allowed to watch things like this.
Sure.
So, it was usually like my sister and I sneaking a peek of a movie like this, as opposed to watching the whole thing. And, we weren't staying by ourselves until we were 16 to 18, for any extended period of time. So a little embarrassing, but kind of funny to look back at. But it would be us sneaking peeks and previews of a movie. And then every once in a while, maybe an hour of something that we could, watch. But yeah, I think that somewhere in that 12 to 13, 14 range.
Mhm.
Probably a little older than most people have their first experience, you know.
Well, and the funny thing about that, like you said, your father, thank you for his service as a homicide detective. He sees that shit all day at work, man. He doesn't want to come home and see it at home too. And he knows that shit's all too real. So he doesn't want you guys to be exposed to it. Totally understand where he's coming from. But this movie right here is one that is synonymous with the genre. A lot of big scenes in this movie that affected people in different ways. Do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most from Friday the 13th?
Yeah, I think it's when they just lay it all out, you know, when they give the background story. I think that it's Jason's, what turns out to be Jason's mom, and then one of the female characters, you know, that are talking about the child that drowned, you know, it ends up being Jason. And I think it's cool because obviously it's an older movie, you know, so I think that what I find neat is I think even like the lack of audio quality and stuff like that kind of plays into the scene. You know, I think it's really cool. It's almost nostalgic, you know, so that you've got this older scene where you expect a certain audio, you expect a certain, you know, communication methods and things, and it's terrifying to watch that. And I think they do a good job laying it out to where you now kind of understand the backstory of why this monster has been created, you know, and it's something relatable too, I think, you know. I mean, a lot of kids go to summer camps, you know, obviously, so it's something scary, you know, drowning. I mean, who hasn't had a fear over something like that? So I think it's a cool mix of like being relatable and also kind of being, you know, scary in its own right and unique. That one definitely stood out to me.
And it's funny because even now as parents, you know, we're both parents now. And I understand where Mrs. Voorhees is coming. I mean, I don't think I'd go as far as she did if my son drowned in the lake. But you do kind of have you feel for her. You know, her son died because of irresponsible kids. She's pissed off. I understand. Like I said, I wouldn't go slashing kids up, but I kind of understand where she's coming from.
Almost semi-understandable what you're saying, right? Like, I mean, that parental side comes out, and that's interesting too because we would have been, you know, too young, obviously, at the time when we first saw it to think that way. But it's interesting mindset changes. You know, watching something like that. Our parents always told us that, and it sounded so cliche. But this is a phenomenal example of exactly how that does change.
Yeah, I would liken that to The Exorcist as well. You know, when we're kids and we watch The Exorcist, we're scared for Reagan because we're kids. You know, what if that happened to me? And then as a parent, you're like, what if that was my kid?
It'd be even worse, so much worse. I'd rather it happen to me. You know,
that's 10 times worse, man.
That's interesting. I didn't really think about that until you said it, but everything just completely changes. That mentality is so different.
Yeah, it's awesome how that works.
Yeah, I haven't watched that in a long time, but I feel like if I went back and watched it now, it would be much more terrifying to put yourself in that situation if it was your child.
Yeah, and especially one scene is when Reagan has "help me" written on her stomach.
Yeah.
And they all see it, you know, because you know that girl is still in there. That's so scary and heartbreaking.
How helpless would you be, you know, as the parents in that situation? I mean, you just feel, And I think that's one thing that it's cool about horror movies. I don't know if you agree, but I think that genre, it allows you to put yourself so much more intensely in the character. So like as you're watching, you're putting yourself in that situation more so than I think other genres, at least me personally. So yeah, you would just be in that situation just so extremely helpless, you know, it'd be a terrifying feeling.
And that's why I think character development in horror movies is super important, because if I don't feel anything for your character, I don't give a shit what happens to them. So I think horror is one of the genres where character development is the most important, because I need to care about these people if I'm going to care about what happens to them. When you think about Friday the 13th, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
Oh, that's good. I think we could tie it back into the whole fitness background. You know, I think that these traditional like slasher type horror movies, you know, where you've got like Halloween and you've got Friday the 13th and like the Nightmare on Elm Street type stuff. It probably sounds strange, but to me, if like we talked about the character development, if you're putting yourself in the movie like you do with the horror movies, I'm a bigger guy, you know, so to me, I'm not going to be so scared of like an older kind of decrepit like man going around with like fingers that are knives type thing. Whereas, you know, you see someone like the guy, I don't know the actor's name, but the guy that plays Jason is a big guy. And then even like the newer Halloween movies that Rob Zombie's directed, you know, that ex-WWE guy that's like 6'8", you know,
Tyler
walking
Mane.
it's a little more scary to me at that point, you know, because now I'm putting myself in the situation. I'm like, this guy's bigger than I am. That doesn't happen very often. So now I'm a little more scared. So I think that, you know, when I think about that Friday the 13th, that's probably what comes to mind for me, is it actually, you know, putting yourself in there, it's an actual situation where I think I would be a little scared. That's what I think.
Yeah, and you know, I got the body. You know, I got dad bod now. You know, I'm almost a father figure. So now I can't even outrun these guys anymore. I was like, fuck, I'm done. Go ahead and take me.
It's so funny. They walk, right? They walk and they catch everybody.
Oh, they would definitely catch me. You know, these people are sprinting. I'm the guy that they leave behind. You know, like one of us has got to go. It's going to be dad bod.
You tripped over the tree log, right?
So we talked about what scene affected you the most, Paul. But I want to go a little bit different here. What would you say your favorite scene from Friday the 13th is?
Oh, geez. That's been a long time. That's jogging my memory. You know what? I don't even know.
Dude, it's with these movies, because it's been so long since we've seen them, sometimes we, you know, like the one that affected us usually is the same for everything. It's our favorite. It's the one that affected us.
It is. Yeah, it is. Because I think it's, like I said, it kind of sets the scene for everything, you know? Yeah, I think I'd have to go the same one. I mean, that's I'm trying to think back and I can't really think of a whole lot more. Yeah, I probably
Let's go dark, man, because this movie has a crazy amount of kills in it, and there's some really good kills when it comes to Friday the 13th. What would you say your favorite kill from the movie is?
Was that the one with where's the one where he came up from out of the water, like through the wooden like plank type area and got that guy like in the Achilles? Was that the same one? Is that the first one?
No,
that's not the first one. Which one is
that? The main kill that most people talk about from the first one usually is the Kevin Bacon one, when she's under the bed and she pushes the arrow up through Kevin Bacon's neck.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah. Those are nasty. You're right. It is gory though, like as opposed to other ones, you know, especially for that time frame, you know, in that time. I mean, it set the standard for all the bloodiness and the goriness that came afterwards, you know.
Right. Well, and most people don't remember, but man, Mrs. Voorhees at the end of this movie totally gets beheaded. Like, and then Jason obviously.
It looked really real too. I remember that. It actually, especially for the time again. What was the year on this movie?
Oh God, it was late 70s, early 80s.
For that time frame, I remember, I can see that in my head. That looked very realistic.
So we talked about your first horror movie, Paul, which was Friday the 13th. But now I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie? What would you say your favorite horror movie is?
I've got to go. That's a good one. I am a big fan, like I said, of the Rob Zombie Halloweens, the recent ones. I really like those. And like I said, I think it's got more of that personal touch to me with like, you know, just seems more realistic, seems more like someone I would be afraid of. The Conjurings come to mind too. I mean, I like those. I know that they're kind of mainstream. But I like
good horror movies, a good horror movie. I agree with you. I love The Conjuring, man.
I personally, I get scared with the religious stuff when it touches on like possession and things like that, because we talked earlier about like the helpless feeling, right? I mean, that would be to me the ultimate like completely helpless feeling at that point, whether it's you or again your child or someone around you. I mean, what are you going to do at that point? You know, like so I think those are pretty terrifying to me. I like The Right with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
That one, I really like Anthony Hopkins. Those are, I think those would be toward the top of my list. I think is it Insidious or Sinister, where what's that scene where they're traveling back in time? Which one was it? And they're going through like Insidious, right?
Yeah, where they're going through the different houses trying to find the boy.
There you go. So the second
with the fingers.
I've got a really funny story. I'm going to share this with you. So Insidious 2, I don't know if you remember this. It's kind of it's a very, I don't want to say pointless scene, but it's something that doesn't stand out to a lot of people probably. It's toward the very end where Parker is the guy's name, right? The main character's name's Parker. Okay. So you find out that it's a boy, right? And you see at the end, you see him, he's a man and he's grown up, and they show him like sneak up on somebody. He's pointing on both sides like this, and he's like, he's got a baby, right? Do you remember that by any chance?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so something really funny is when that came out, that was probably 7 or 8 years ago, I want to say. And my son's mom and I saw it at the time, and it meant nothing to either one of us at that point. And then I watched it. I went back, and I don't know what streaming service is on now. It's like Netflix or Amazon or something. And again, everything changes, right? Your whole life changes, changes. I saw that part, and I got, because we used to imitate it. So we would see it and then we would imitate it because we thought it was funny, like the way the guy looked and stuff like that. So it was this ongoing joke with her and I for like 2 years.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about it. And then I go back and I watch it like in the last 6 months or so. And I see that scene, and I called her immediately, and I'm like, this scene that we used to talk about years ago has completely different meaning to the two of us now. We shouldn't watch this. It's terrifying. I had to turn the movie off, because the guy's talking about having the kid, and it just is completely different how things change. So yeah, that I
even that voice, he's got your baby. He's got your baby. And he can't hear him. The main guy can't hear him. He's like, what's he saying? There's a guy in front of you.
And he's like unnecessarily naked. Like, why is he naked? Like that. So like the same, like it's so many things that contribute to that scene. Like he could have had clothes on. It would have been less creepy. He's like real hairy and stuff, like that's a creepy scene. So, but yeah, I thought that was funny. Now we joke about it, like avoiding it. We used to joke about it and imitate it. Now we're like, let's not watch that ever again.
Right. Like you said, things change, man. Once you hold that kid for the first time, all those movies take on a full different meaning. So, man, this has been amazing, and I have had so much fun. But man, we always end these with the same question. We're going to go back to Friday the 13th, and we are going to rank it on a skull count. No, we're not ranking it on creativity, production. We're not being critics. We're ranking this movie strictly on what this movie means to you and how it affected you. So 0 to 5 skulls, 0 being the worst and 5 being the best. What would be your ranking of Friday the 13th?
So it's based on how it affected me.
Yes.
4.6.
Yeah. Totally fair.
I think that it's just like the scene we talked about, kind of setting the tone for the series of movies, right? I think it kind of, with the time frame that it was and then the age where I saw it, I think it kind of set the standard for, and like kind of, open my mind to a new genre and like new creativity from movies and a genre. And I think, like we talked about, I think that I like horror a lot because it doesn't seem like it has the same boundaries and the same limits as other genres do. It seems like you can not only push those limits, but like exceed them, in most horror movies, like people accept a little more because they're like, oh, it's a horror movie. It's supposed to do this, So I think that like you talked about how gory it is, and especially the time frame being that bloody and those kills and so many of them, I think it kind of set the standard for like what I would expect with a horror movie going forward, So I give it a pretty high rating because I think it does that. It sets that baseline.
And it's still, like I said, a lot of this movie still holds up today. It's still a fun watch. I watch this movie 2 or 3 times a year still to this day. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I do want to remind everybody, I have all Paul's links down here in the description. So if you haven't yet, make sure you're clicking those. Give him a follow. The guy knows what he's doing, and you can learn so much from him just from following him, especially on Instagram. So Paul, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.